This is Arash Amini. It is 9 a.m. on Thursday, April 16th. And not looking good out there. It's not looking good out there. Listen, personally, I'm having the best time of my life during this pandemic. I am hanging out with my family, eating well, exercising. Turns out I've been preparing for this for a decade and I didn't even realize it. While everyone else is starting to realize all at once, oh, hey, our society is a construct that we've built rather unconsciously, and now we need to deal with it because it needs to change because everything is evolving on this planet simultaneously, and it's pretty effing intense. Now, remember, this is the Stack Biotics show, so you need to go over to stack.farm and pick up a 10 pack of our cellular genomic stability concoction, genomic stability tea or serum. It is the most advanced supplement on the planet. I know it doesn't look like much, but it took a decade to figure out how to grow this stuff properly at scale in a reproducible way at a quality that will actually increase the genomic stability of your new cells. You're making 200 billion new cells every day. Half of those, 100 billion, are immune cells. You don't need to worry about the coronavirus if you make sure those cells get the best building blocks for their lifespan so they can go out and do what they need to do across your galaxy that is a body. Remember, you got more cells than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy by 100 times. You have 30 trillion cells. You are a galaxy unto yourself. And your immune system is this intergalactic fighting force that communicates at the faster than the speed of light across your entire galaxy, fighting off this invader, any invading force, keeping you alive constantly. If they're gone, you're dead tomorrow. Remember that. Your immune system is everything. So obviously get some sleep. Obviously drink plenty of water. But it's been proven that plant-based extracts produce healthier new cells than food-based vitamins and supplements, and definitely over synthetic. So all we've done is found a way to grow the most mineral rich crop in the most mineral rich and vitamin rich form factor and process those to produce the most bioavailable compounds so they actually get into new cells. We're working on testing everything. There's a lot of biophysics involved. It's available for free and transparently at stack.farm. You can obviously grow your own. You can buy ours. I suggest you buy a kit and grow it for your friends and family, especially if you need the money right now. It is a great and fun side hustle that's getting more efficient every week here. So you can follow along at stack.farm in the mailing list. The one thing I'm going to say anecdotally is I had a cracked tooth down here and it's gone after drinking my tea. I did not change much about my diet. It's been going, keto-esque that whole time. And I cracked it from grinding it in my sleep one night out of stress. They said it will cost 5 grand to fix. I didn't have insurance, don't have insurance still. And I said, no, you're probably wrong, medical professional, because you don't go scour through the internet for fringe scientific papers. I can tell that from looking at your eyes. You're not that kind of person. So, of course, you're parroting what you heard in med school, which was put there by a board of education who themselves do not look for new cutting edge fringe science. And so here we are, cracked tooth, healed, no pain, chewing, flossing, nothing. So I'm going to go get an x-rayed when I can as a proof point, but anecdotal evidence is still evidence. Now, let's talk about that for a second here. Let's talk about the scientific method and dummies talking about science like they understand it for a second. Anecdotal evidence is a form of evidence. And no scientist in the real scientist in the history of the world, citizen scientist or credentialed, has ever discovered something meaningful by experiment. The most meaningful discoveries in the world come from somebody having an intuition, an idea, a dream, some ethereal vision, a hunch, believing in it, and then pursuing the scientific framework to make it discoverable via experiment. That's how science works. Because you don't have evidence yet does not mean anything yet. All scientific discoveries start without evidence, start in the realm of mm, thought, belief, really, and then via experiment get validated. The problem with experimental validation is that reality is so nuanced that you have to look precisely at where you are predicting an outcome and in the most precise manner you possibly can to get any relevant data. And so doing that by, discovering something by experiment is literally like finding a needle in a haystack when all you have is a pair of tweezers. Experiments in science are tweezers. They are very small samples of a slice of reality. I mean, insane how let's talk about spectroscopy, me proving what's in here. So spectroscopy is a field of science that uses light to understand, to measure atoms and molecules, right? So there's like, I don't know, a dozen, 2 dozen forms of spectroscopy. Electron spectroscopy or microscopy is even another thing where they shoot electrons at an item and the electron bouncing back or moving accordingly uh, gives you gives you a resolution of what's going on. Spectroscopy. So in the most basic sense, I could burn this material in here and measure the light coming off of it, and that would tell me what atoms are in here and what molecules those correlate to. Um, if my gas isn't burning hot enough, if my photo sensor is not calibrated, I will not get the right answers. You cannot go looking for things with the measuring instruments needed in modern science and find something new because you're only looking at the slightest. You're looking through a pinhole through a microscope. It's so crazy. Real invention always starts with an idea that just comes to you. So this is the process of science. This is how it goes, and this is what's happening here. Now, let's talk about. I was watching the news this morning, and last half hour, it is the most uplifting typically. And, you know, I forget we're in a pandemic. My life is so good right now. Everything is going so well. Everything I've worked for is coming to fruition now that I literally forget we're at a pandemic. One, because I know I'm going to get the COVID-19 eventually. Two, I'm preparing my immune system, have prepared my immune system. Three, I'm not in a risk group. Four, if I wear a face mask outside and don't touch my face, I have a very low odds of getting it in general. Six, if I wash my hands when I get home, I'll be fine. And then eight, if there's need, I can take hydrochloroquine and Z-Packs and have a great outcome, a percentage likelihood of a great outcome. And then I guess 9 and 10, such is life. There are dangerous things out there, and I have come to accept that this is not a permanent state. We are all transients through life. The thing that kills me about what's going on is the unemployment numbers. 22 million people have filed for unemployment claims in the past like 6 weeks. That is a bloodbath. It's a massacre, and it's going to cause far more damage as much damage as a 1% fatality rate from the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus fatality rate has also been dropping because so many people are not showing symptoms that also have it, that they're not going in to be tested. The vast majority of people, I've heard 40 to 80% of people that get it show no symptoms, or perhaps very mild symptoms. 40% show no symptoms, 80% show none to mild symptoms. So they're not getting tested. So the only people being tested are people that are very sick. They go in with flu-like symptoms. 10, 20% of them test positive for coronavirus. So now we have 20%, let's say, of everybody that gets tested has it. Of that 20%, about 1% are dying. So that's bad. But if you take that 20% and you extrapolate it and say, you know, 80% of people that have it, 0.2% therefore would be dying. Is that right? If I'm 0.25, if I multiply 20 by 4 to make my total population larger, then my fatality rate has to fall by be divided by 4. So that's 1% goes to 0.25%, which becomes 2.5 times deadlier than the average flu. Now, is that worth 22 million unemployed? No. If you're at risk, you need to stay home, wear a face mask, wash your face, know where your nearest hospital is, and pursue social distancing. The rest of us need to get, not even me. I'm fine working from home and living this life. The rest of the people need to go out and work. Now, here's the scary scenario. What's going to happen when those people who are blue collar workers? There's a couple things happening. First off, started with blue collar workers getting fired. Then the white collar workers are now starting to get fired as the economic impact affects their business. So first, restaurants, non-essential business, retail, bars, entertainment, all that stuff got shut down. All right, those people filed for unemployment, 16 million people or so. Now you have 5 million people file for unemployment. They are starting to become part of that 5 million are people that relied on those businesses. So businesses that sold into restaurants, into hospitality, into entertainment, into sporting events, right? Those B2B companies selling equipment, selling food, selling all this stuff, right? So that's starting to happen, and that's going to start freaking people out. Because I guess it's okay to fire and make permanently unemployed blue collar deplorables and illegal immigrants. That's okay. Now the white collar people are going to start getting freaked out because there's no economic activity. Their banks don't have anyone to lend to. Their insurance has no one to sell to, right? So that's coming next. Simultaneously, the people. The food supply chain is being permanently affected. Not permanently, perhaps, but potentially unreversibly affected because farmers grew half their crop to sell into the restaurant supply chain. Half ish goes to food service, half ish goes to consumers. So the consumer one goes to grocery stores and the like. Okay, distributors, wholesalers, um, grocery stores. On the All of a sudden, though, there's no restaurants, there's no restaurant wholesalers and distributors buying the food. Therefore, the crops that they grew for that half of their business are sitting, and they can't sell all of a sudden twice as many onions to grocery stores because they don't need twice as many onions, right? So that is dropping the price that they can get per onion if now they have the demand. If the supply doubles and the demand stays fixed, the price will go down because now there's a glut of onions on the market, so I don't have to go to you for 20 cents an onion. I can go to that guy because he's giving me 15 cents, and all of a sudden this guy's desperate. He needs 10 cents, and now people are throwing out onions because they can't even sell them for a penny an onion. So are they going to keep growing onions? No. Are they going to grow as much? Definitely not. right? Are they going to grow zero? Probably not, but it's going to start affecting how much is produced, and then God knows what that's going to do, right? So that's going on simultaneously. Then you have this other geo um, demographic overlay of these unemployment numbers. You have high levels. I wonder if you have high levels of unemployment amongst urban dwellers. Who's the most unemployed? Um, and how does that relate to our undocumented illegal immigrant population and the undocumented black market population? People that trade and sell guns, drugs, and human beings. The undocumented economy. Obviously, people that are making a ethical living aren't in that group, but they share the fact that they're not being documented by the IRS. So it's hard to see into what's going on there. And then you have the blue collar workers, and you wonder, where do they live? Who do they support? I bet they're more Trump leaning and Republican. So now we have, if this is true, we have on one end of the political spectrum, the people hit hardest right now are poor people that probably are Trump supporters on one side, and I would say undocumented immigrants on the other side, illegal immigrants on the other side of the political spectrum. They probably both have or have access to firearms. This is a bad combination. Two factions that are at odds for limited resources with the means to carry out violent acts of violence, targeted acts of violence. At what point are we going to see increased gang violence, increased, mm, maybe just call it violence in general? Simultaneously, if that's true, it's hard to say because we don't know yet, and maybe if parts of that are true and parts are not. Let's just leave that as a space of potential. Simultaneously, you have um, police departments telling people publicly that they will not pursue petty crimes, including violent crimes, if they're not, past a certain threshold. So now the police aren't going to respond. Right now, everything is fine. No one's freaked out. But we have these dueling crises. One is the overrunning of the hospital system by freely growing COVID-19 infections. The other is civil unrest due to hunger, really. Now, it seems like the perfect storm. It seems like everything's being done to make it harder and harder for people to make a living, grow their own food, socialize, share ideas, protest, um, not be censored online. I mean, everything is being clamped down by this reaction to COVID-19. And it's a powder keg waiting to pop off. And as soon as it does, the response logically has to be martial law. The National Guards are already on the floor, on the ground. Um, Everyone's in a heightened state of security anyway. You have emergency powers declared by many governors. Um, there's the social contract has been rewritten overnight. Now, President Trump, I think, is the one counteracting force to mayhem, if you believe it. I certainly do. So it can't get as bad as it could if another person was in charge who was pro um, gulag. But since President Trump is obviously pro freedom, there's a backstop there. The question is not if we're going to enter a civil war, which I don't think we will. I don't believe it'll come to that. It's how much economic damage are we willing to put up with, potentially irreversible economic damage for COVID-19 deaths? And at what point is my civil liberty more valuable than your safety? You being someone with pre-existing conditions, elderly, and so on. I think the safe and smart route to go is to begin opening up the economy, mandate masks, not vaccines, mandate masks with no fine, thank you, or perhaps a $10 fine, okay? Just enough to make it known and a pain in your butt for not thinking of the at-risk groups, right? But then that means you need to have access to masks, so they can't really mandate masks if nobody has them. And then people in at-risk groups have to stay in and shelter. There is no other route. What are people going to do, and how much longer will they be able to afford going to the grocery store? Especially if you live in urban centers. That's my biggest concern. There's a lot of working poor people that have been increasingly uh, uh, unable to afford living in these big cities, even though the promise of a job was what lured them in there. And now they get in there, and just the cost of living is so high as compared to wages that they're stuck in the worst part of the rat race. One where you can't stop for a second because you need the cash flow to pay the bills that are there no matter what by your mere existence. God forbid you have a smartphone, even if it's a cheap one. God forbid if you have a data plan, even if it's a small one, right? God forbid you have any modern luxury because your day to day existence is so tiring and there is no end in sight, no retirement for you except Social Security, which you know is either going to be minuscule or bankrupt by that point, that you simply have no choice but to keep on running on the treadmill. What are your options? The average person, God forbid you have a child because you love your partner and you wanted to bring a child into your family, right? It is it is tough. I've been there. You're either making there's two camps in this country. People that make too little income and people that make too much. There is no healthy medium. You're either working some dead end job and you have to limit your expenses dramatically, draconiously, or you're making too much. And then you get to buy stocks and you get to invest in a 401k. 90% of the country does not own stocks. If that's a proxy for having excess income to invest, I mean, that's after a savings account, that's after health insurance, that's after car payments, rent, schooling, all that stuff usually gets paid. And then people have money sitting around. They're like, well, what do I do with this? I want it to earn some money for me, so I'm going to put it to work in the stock market. 10% of the country owns stocks. So are we accurate when we say that only 10% of that 90% of the country is not making enough income? You look at the distribution of income levels, and it's pretty true. It's not enough to live comfortably in America. And let's be real, Being poor in America is the worst place to be poor in the world. The worst. Oh, and then now all of a sudden the people that are freaking out saying, but what about your cell phone, your iPhone, your Netflix, your blah blah blah. You at least your quality of life is way better. Hey, listen, dum dum. Have you ever been poor or broke with no end in sight? Have you ever been broke? Because being broke means it's temporary. There's an end in sight eventually. A lot of rich people put their kids through some broke phase in college. But the kid is not freaking out and hasn't lost hope in life because they will know eventually I'm going to get some high paying job because that's what I do. Being poor means there's no end in sight. This is it. This is our lives. There's no reasonable way to solve this. I'm not getting on Shark Tank. I don't have money to get a mortgage. Nobody is investing in my ideas. There's no out here, right? That's the majority of people on planet Earth. And it's miserable. I've been there. I didn't see an end in sight, but I believed there had to be a way out. And God helped me get out. Beyond faith, I don't know what else you could use to get out of those situations. Like, period. It's that hopeless. Now, being poor in America is terrible. It's the worst because you still have to work your ass off. You don't get any government mandated month off like you do in other countries. The social safety net is very low. You hit your ass bouncing off the bottom of that. You're seen as lesser than. You're stressed through the roof. You can't afford anything fun. You have no physical mobility. You can't travel. You're stuck in your little nook. There's no railway system for a cheap ticket. You can go see you're done. You have to drive everywhere, so you have to buy a car. You have to have internet access somewhere to do any type of to apply for jobs. Your one, uh, outlet is like your Netflix account, which is not fun when you are worried about where your money is going to come from for your next rent payment. Once you have steady money coming in, you're in another headspace. You can start thinking about creative stuff. I mean, you have to be so delusional to be broke and believe that you can get out of that. It's insane. And then you have all the other broke people, poor people around you dragging you down because they don't want you getting out and making them look bad. Even though we should be propping up our best shots, pushing them out of the poor, pushing them over the poverty line, so to speak, working poverty line, so they can help pull us out. But we don't do that. Most people don't do that. It's the most stressful place to be poor is America. You are free to succeed, but you are free to fail. And that is tough. You think you go to college, you get a job, that turned out to be a scam. You think you are polite and in public company, that doesn't get you work. You think you are, you start thinking the system's rigged against you. And in many ways, it is rigged against the poor. Nobody wants to be around poor people. And as soon as you get money, you're so glad you're not broke anymore that you go and you never fucking look back. You overspend a little bit. You delige. What's the term? You indulge in overeating. You surround yourself with other seemingly affluent people to never feel the shame of poverty again. And that's America's greatest sin. It's become shameful to not make enough money. When in reality, it's just a skill that we can teach everybody how to make. And everybody can make more money. There's no reason mega retail corp selling all that stuff at their mega stores can't have competition from you and me. There's absolutely no reason, especially for interesting, new, and novel products. We can do it, but it's not easy. There's no venture fund that's going to invest. Listen, a venture fund won't even invest in me. And I went to college for physics. I earned a physics degree from a reputable state school with a reputable physics program, particle physics program. Uh, I speak English pretty darn well, and I am an immigrant brown guy, person of color. Those three things could not get me venture capital. Zero venture capital. Turns out you need to have gone to an elite university, worked in an elite company, or live in an elite city. One of those is barely enough to get you foot through the door. If you have two of those, you can raise venture capital. Venture capital is supposed to be this thing that lets us all dream of starting the next great American company. And it's a god darn lie. It's a complete lie. Unless you're making revenue and you're growing very fast, you are going to get the only way into that club without those credentials is if you're making income and you're growing very fast and or you're growing very fast. Well, guess what it takes to generate income, generate revenue, and grow really fast? It requires capital and time. Capitalism is great if you got capital. If you don't have any capital, you're stuck in the water. You're stuck in the mud. Now, what most people don't understand, and a mentor taught me once, is that the original capital on earth was our time, what we decided to do with our time. However, it's easy to say, go get a degree, go start a business in your garage, so on and so forth. It is so exhausting to do that in the first place, even if you find the spark, that thing that just gets you going. Okay, good. Try earning a living and paying all your bills and then having extra time to do that if you are not in the top 10% of incomes. Good effing luck. And then this is what drives me crazy. We are investing in, as a country, only the top 10% of our population, as if the other 90 doesn't have good ideas. I mean, this is insanity. We are missing out on 90% of the ideas on this in this country. You telling me that you have to go to here's a great example. I applied for Stack Biotics to a biotech accelerator. They said they gave you 140 characters to sell the idea, and I knew what they wanted to hear, so I put it in there. Lo and behold, I got a phone call, 30-minute phone call with them. I just started ranting because it's the first time an institution has listened to me in a long time, and it was the first time I got in front of investors for Stack Biotics, private investors like that. They invest $250,000 into a company for like 8%, 10%. Do you have any idea how life changing that is? Oh, it was the second time. First time was with a company that invested $500,000. This is before it was Stack Biotics and it was just personal farming. Now, they didn't read my deck. They didn't read my white paper. They just read the 140 sentences, and they had companies that they had invested in that produce meat in petri dishes. Feeding those cells is expensive. I pitched a plant-based, low-cost alternative to that. I started talking about everything. They saw my Trump poster at the beginning. It was over. And I just remember pleading my case to this PhD with this grin. And she's just like, you're not getting in. I'm the gatekeeper. You're outside. 98% of their investments went to PhDs. They asked for proof of my claims. I had 30 scientific papers to back my claims. There's no labs open to run tests right now. She's like, oh, well, I guess then if you come back with data, you can apply then. I'm like, so you're only going to invest in ideas that were discovered in a lab at a university before COVID-19. So that means the entire planet that doesn't have access to a lab that came up with an idea during COVID-19 is locked out of the capital that you're providing and the lab that you have. This is the fundamental problem. And we're not going to be able to fix it uh, simply. Hey, ask me anything if you have any questions or comments. So, and they ran away. How dare you? This is this is the these are the elites. These are the people that have led us. These are the experts that have led us into this COVID-19 mess. They are the ones that overlooked our health system, our research and development, our foreign policy, our local, our pharmaceutical manufacturing base. These are the people that set us up for failure, and they are in their ivory towers behind their academic credentials, hiding behind their credentials, telling us what to do when they are disproportionately unaffected by their decisions and the reality on the ground. So that when you go to a store in Michigan and you can't buy seeds to plant in your yard, you have some faceless, in this case, the governor, to thank for that. When you have to be one of 22 million people waiting for your unemployment check, you have a credentialed expert to thank for that. When you have supply chain shortages and irreversible economic damage caused, you have an expert to thank for that. While the average person, I'm no genius. I hate to admit it, but I have a barely above average IQ, 116 points. I think that's just over average. Is we have all the answers, have the means to solve every problem, but are unallowed to by law and by capital allocation. We are not invested in, we are not listened to, we are not empowered to run the country, the society that we already run. Who's fixing the roads? Who's feeding the people? Who's farming the fields? Who is doing all the work that is a necessary work now? And who is doing the work that is completely unnecessary at the core of a society? Is completely frivolous or luxurious, right? Luxury car makers and watchmakers, stock traders, advertisers, uh, who else, right? Plastic surgeons, all non-essential workers are the ones that'll be unaffected. All essential workers are the one hit hardest by this. How is that? That's not fair. That's not right. That's not moral. That's not just. That's not smart. That's counterproductive. And we're the ones being forced to stay in our homes when we have the wherewithal to run the country and keep it working, but we don't have the intelligence to know when to go out in public and when not to, when to buy seeds and when not to. It's insane. And all of these people that say otherwise need to go away. You're wrong. I had an argument with a family member, love this person. The way they looked, or not looked at me, but the way they spoke to me when they found out my scientific, the people without the information are the ones judging the people with the information. It's hilarious. And so if martial law comes, know that you are on the side of the soldier. Know that you are akin to your neighbor. Know that you are on the right side of history. If you're nonviolent and martial law is imposed upon you, you are on the right side of history. Be patient. Laugh at these arrogant fools. And don't be quiet. All you have to do to change the world is speak your mind. That's it. Obama's red line in Syria. He was about to bomb that place to Baghdad. What happened? There was simply too much resistance on social channels in the zeitgeist. And they knew if they did that, they'd be crossing the line with the electorate. We didn't have to raise a finger, we didn't have to fire a bullet. You just have to be mad and say so online. That's it. The same systems that can bind us can free us. It's awesome. We have everything we need to have a global society where everyone is fed, educated, and healthy, and has a little bit of time, contributes to the whole, keeps the thing running, and has a little bit of time to pursue something of novel interest to them. And if it turns into something a bunch of people need, the capital needs to be available for them to pursue it, to provide the solution to the market. These venture capitalists are hilarious. They're so dumb. They are good with money, and so they think they're smart. It's not the same thing. So they raise money from their limited partners. These limited partners invest to them, and the venture capitalist gets 2% of that fund as their to pay themselves and pay their meager salaries and overhead. And then they get 20% of any exits that they produce. So they know that they need one exit a year to go crazy big out of maybe 20 bets to pay for all the failures. And then it can go so big so fast that it makes a ton of money for everybody involved. So they go skiing all the time. They go to dinners all the time. They network and they make bets. And they don't know what will make a successful company. It's hilarious how little they know about startups. Why do I say how little they know? Well, first off, 8 out of 10 of their bets don't go anywhere. So their success rate sucks. They keep investing in people that remind them of themselves. These type A dudes, people of their gender, of their ethnicity, whoever their disposition, I should say. And so, like early on, they're so bad at spotting good investments from bad investments that if you tell them what they want to hear and you say things in the right way, investors are easily fooled. Look at Theranos, raised $400 million, didn't have shit, right? These are the people hoarding the capital that could change the world. If that venture capital was freely available for the average person in America to access, we would have a completely transformed society. Obesity, diabetes, gun violence, heart attacks, poverty, malnutrition, all that stuff would be gone. And it would be gone because there'd be products on the market that fit that fix those problems. But those problems aren't faced by rich people. And so what do we have? We have a bunch of dog walking apps, food delivery robots, uh, convenience, time saving things, luxury experiences, uh, things for services for venture backed companies. It's like incestuous and it's insane. And so they've built themselves in Elysium where they get to live in the clouds, and the rest of us are stuck here on Earth. And they're the ones that have tricked us into thinking this is a nightmare scenario, that we're all doomed. Well, you're not doomed. You don't have to be afraid of COVID-19. Literally, all you have to do is produce your own microgreen tea. I'm telling you, the science will come and prove me right. This is solid biophysics, very solid biophysics. Look into my research and you'll agree. And yet, what is the media doing? Scaring the bejesus out of you. Day in, day night. They are essential. They're getting paid millions to read a teleprompter from their homes in makeup. I mean, good Lord. What are the celebrities doing? Singing from their mansions about nihilistic, whatever, pleasure. What are the athletes doing? They're kind of stuck in the middle of this. They're just chilling. What are the politicians doing? Grabbing power. What are the banks doing? Raising the bar for buying a house. What are companies doing? Getting government bailout while firing people. What is the federal government doing? Thank God the federal government is the one. Can you believe that the federal government is the one entity right now that's acting morally, ethically, and righteously in a timely manner? I mean, it's insane, but every force is counteracting it right now. And it is, thank God, it's our backstop, but it's also flying into headwinds with as hard as it can. It's making very little progress because it's going against 100 years of dumb ideology with internal strife and the press. Oh my God, it's insane. And so all of these groups, minus the federal government, would love to see mandatory martial law. It would give the politicians more power. It would give the press better stories. It would give businesses, corrupt BS businesses, an excuse. It would give um, it would give nihilist, far fringe groups purpose. Everybody would want it, and that's a dangerous thing in my perspective. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious that people think this is going to work. It's not going to work. So don't be afraid. Be excited. We're transforming. Yes, there's a power struggle, such as life. Know what side of history you want to be on. Are you pro freedom or anti freedom? Pro sovereignty or against sovereignty? That's really what it comes down to. There is no other choice as far as I can see. And the answer is going to be obvious to everybody. So, um, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for listening to this rant. Uh, I sure do hope we avoid martial law. If it comes to that, I send my best regards to the men and women that have to enforce it. Please be kind to them. They are heroes and don't deserve our scorn. But they also need to think for themselves and behave ethically if it comes to that. Last thing I'm going to say is there probably should become a mandatory draft of legal or of age men and women, young men and women, to go and harvest food in the fields and work our meatpacking, our food uh, uh, harvesting and processing facilities need to be manned, and this COVID-19 is stopping the flow of illegal immigrants that are coming here to work for nothing. And so this is our patriotic duty. I'd be the first person to sign up for that. And I know it'd be a garbage job, but it will feed everybody. And it's the least we can do. Literally, it's the least we can do. All right, everybody. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Stack dot farm.